Hi guys, in this video I show you how I made cream style corn for the shelf to fix a craving. It's not easy buying this in this country and I've been feeling a bit homesick of late, so let's get to it. Being a person from a different country can sometimes be a little bit confusing when you're trying to buy something that you love in a new place. And this is one of those things. Creamed corn or creamed style corn, because they are two very different things, it's almost impossible to buy here unless you go to like an Asian store that sells it. And it's imported, so it tends to be quite expensive. But I thought, you know what, let's give it a crack, let's make it ourselves, because we have the technology, and a kilo bag of sweet corn kernels is only £1.80 at the time of filming this. So what harm could there be, right? First off, we are just going to boil these until they're softer. It's just until they're softer and no longer frozen. How's that? About 10 minutes. That'll do. Now once they're done, we're going to drain off half the liquid, which is fine, and add in about a tablespoon of sea salt to the whole lot. And once we've done that, I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of buckwheat flour. I have done this with arrowroot or cassava flour or just plain flour before, or even corn flour. I prefer with buckwheat or a different flour from corn flour, as corn flour doesn't seem to like being reheated. So once we're all done, we're just going to mix it through. So we do have kept some of the liquid from cooking the corn. After doing this, I would actually say that it probably would have been a better idea to keep all of it. As you can see later on, I had to add some extra water in because the blending was not so easy. So just make sure to get it fully coated and mixed in, both the salt and the buckwheat flour, or whatever flour it is that you choose to use. There really isn't a lot to this process. It's not a highly complicated one, and if anything, I would say it's a beginner's. Bless this mess and all who live in her. Now this time round I used the blender. I think in future when I do this I would use my food processor rather, as it may have a better texture. This, as you will see, turned out to be quite a thick puree, and creamed style corn in general tends to have a little bit of chunk to it. But let's just see how we go. So what is the difference between cream style corn and creamed corn? Well, cream style corn is this, where it's pureed corn with a little bit of thickening agent, but it's got quite a bit of liquid to it as well. And creamed corn is made with cream and all kinds of other ingredients. Problem is that, like anything, you know, that we buy in the stores now, cans are always having far too much sugar and salt and stuff in them that we don't need, that's not necessary. So as much as I have to make this out of a necessity because I really love it and I can't find it, you know, I'm also making it in a way that is healthy for me and my family. Now, this is the first lot that went through the blender. I tried to keep a little bit of chunk in there, as you can see, but of course it did blend quite well, a lot, and it is really thick. Now, is this a problem for me? No. Why? Because when I have cream corn, I like it on toast with cheese on top. I do, because, you know, I'm that kind of person. You know, creamed corn on toast with cheese. Or I do make fritters from it. The other thing that I do as well is, on occasion, very rare, obviously I haven't done it since I've been back in the UK because I haven't been able to find cream corn, but when the kids were little, I used to make chicken and sweet corn soup. Just a very, very quick chicken and sweet corn soup. But they did used to love having corn fritters as well. I'm not going to fill up these jars all the way that I would normally because it is so thick, and I'm going to add a thinner mix to the top to get that up to the collar of the jar. Okay, so while I'm doing this, I'm going to have a chat to you about the collaboration, because I think you might have noticed there's a little thumbnail right there, right in the corner. Plan to Can 2025. Now, I was invited to this collaboration by Jeni over at Scratch Made Kitchen, and just wanted to let you guys know that there is a giveaway on March the 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Miller Life Kitchen channel, and she's going to be giving away a pressure cooker. So if you're watching this after that, really sorry you missed it, but if you're watching it before that, make sure to get your butts over there, and also make sure to go and check the other channels that are involved in this collaboration. They're down in the description below. Now, obviously this time around I didn't grow my own corn. I bought the frozen corn. I do have corn that I actually bought but froze myself this year, but I prefer to use this for this job. Whether I grow corn this year and actually are successful at it, who knows? Maybe I'll be making it from my own garden. Oh, quality control off camera. Quality control off camera would just like to say, this is really good. As you can see, this one is even thicker than the first batch, and so I had to make a decision. So I decided to add a little bit more water. Now, if I kept all the cooking liquid from the sweet corn kernels, I probably wouldn't have had to do this. So let that be a lesson to you. That's moved through a lot easier. I've added a little bit more again of water just to make sure, and it's even seconds. Okay, there is a bit more chunk texture to this, which I'm good with. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. It's also a bit more pourable, which is what we want, because creamed style corn is quite pourable. Now, when it comes to jars and lids, here in the UK we tend to just use jam jars, the kind that you would get in the supermarket that have jam in them, okay, and the lug lids, which again you would find in the supermarkets on your jam. Many people start out using the recycled lids as their jar lids for the next batch. I actually am able to reuse my lids probably 4, 5, 6 times before I have to replace them. And buying replacement lids is really, really cheap. The other thing is that many of us over here in the UK still do not do pressure cooking or pressure canning. Pressure canners are incredibly expensive and are worth probably what some of us would get in 2 weeks for pay over here. So it's not worth doing. and unless you have the money to cover that, or can find a cheap option. But for the majority of us, it's out of reach, and for me in particular, I don't do it at all. I prefer a water bath, and I use very specific timings for that, and they're ones that my mother used, her mother used, her mother's mother used. You know, they're ones that we've always used. So when it comes to water bathing, what we tend to do is we will fill our jars up as you would for pressure canning. I lay a tea towel at the bottom of the saucepan. But I have a huge pot that I use for just water bathing, pretty much, unless I'm making stock. Then I'm making stock. It's a massive pot, and I can fit eight of these jars that we're using today in one batch, which is good. I mean, like, if I wanted to, I could put more on the top laid down, which, you know, that's a thing too. I just, not something that I do very often. Now, I know many people get worried about the cost of water bathing because you have to have the cooker on for such a long time. I have found that it actually only costs me about 40p a batch for a 3-hour water bath. These aren't even a 3-hour water bath, they're a 2-hour water bath from the point of boiling, so I'm not that bothered about it. Now what we're doing here is the third and final batch, and I'm trying to fill my jars as hard as I can. Yeah, so but what I'm also doing is I'm topping up the overly thick jars here with what's left in the third batch, because it's a lot runnier. This not only helps to fill the jar, but it also will help to loosen the rest of the creamed style corn. So out of those 2 kilos of corn kernels, we've managed to get 6 jars and 1 larger jar, which is incredible because these jars are about the size of a normal can of cream style corn. So next, however, we do need to remove some of that air, so I'm going to get hold of a chopstick and let's get going. Now I know you can get fancy debubblers and all that kind of stuff, but honestly it's just one extra thing that I just find that I don't need. I've got loads of chopsticks and wooden chopsticks and all sorts of different chopsticks, and they work fine for me. The other option, of course, if you don't have chopsticks or anything like that, then just use a knife and just get the worst of the areas that have got the air in them, the little air pockets, out of this. So I'm now putting the lids on and we're almost there. Just to be completely clear, I have cleaned these lids, but they were left to drip dry, so there's a little bit of dry water residue left on them. It doesn't mean that they're filthy or anything like that, it just means that they are clean. It's just, I'm going to wipe it off as I go. When you have thick concoctions like this, or condensed soups, or other kinds of curries, or whatever it is that you're making, it is really important to debubble. We don't want excessive air pockets in there because that's where the mold can grow, and we don't want that at all. No thank you. A lot of it will work its way up to the top though of the jar during the cooking process, because this will boil and that will produce its own, you know, gas exchange, so it will force the air to the top of the jar. However, we want to just make absolutely sure that that happens. So once this is done and the lids are on nice and, you know, solidly, not too tight because we don't want it to explode, but we don't want the lids to come off, so you want to have it a good little bit more than finger tight, but not tight. We will get these into the water bath, so yeah, let's just skip to the end. Now they are all done, we're going to get them into the water bath canner, which is my big stock pot. First off, we're going to get a tea towel down the bottom, that way the glass isn't clanging on the metal as it's boiling, and we reduce the risk of any kind of breakage from that kind of movement. It also keeps the jars a little bit more stable, so they're less likely to fall over. And I'm just checking the lids because, you know, that's a really good idea. Check your lids. Now I ended up putting the bigger jar in the middle of the smaller one, so that way it becomes a little bit more stable as well, and the little jars tend to protect the bigger one. So this is going to take a little bit of water, not gonna lie. It's going to take a little bit more than usual because of the cooler jar, so you know, we're going to get a couple of extra litres in there, which means that the pot is going to be a lot fuller than normal. So once this pot comes to the boil with the lid on, we're going to water bath this for 2 hours. You don't start timing till it comes to the boil. Once that's done, you're going to want to pull your jars out. I usually leave them about 10 minutes after I've turned it off, just to let it all settle down a little bit. Now I have a proper jar lifter now, which is great. I would just wish these had been around for a lot longer than I knew they were, because up until then we were leaving the jars in the water bath until I could literally grab them out. Now these will be transported from here to my table and left overnight to cool completely before they get labelled and put on the shelf. Now let's have a really quick look at how much we saved ourselves here. Now to buy this amount of cream style corn, it would have cost us around £12.64. It cost us £1.80 for the ingredients, which has given us a saving of £9.04, including the electric. Let's check out that amazing colour. That's absolutely stunningly golden. I can't wait to get stuck into this. So thanks guys for watching, and I will see you again really soon. Don't forget to watch the other channels down below in the description. Bye for now. Bye.